Yo, what's good with you? We are back for another episode of What's Good with You, and I have two very special guests that I'm so excited to have. And I want to make sure that I pronounce your name right. But is it Evans Anyanwu
Perfect. Good job, Lee.
and Ali Gates? And they
Yes.
are the creators of this brand new mental health app called You Good. And I'm so excited to have them here. How you guys doing?
Great, great. Thank you so much for having us, Lee. We really appreciate it.
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. So I found you guys through Twitter actually, and my friend sent me a tweet about your guys' app, and I was like, "Dang, that's cool!" Like, I gotta check them out on Instagram. So I DM'd Evans, and tried to set up something, and he responded. I was surprised. I was like, "Oh man!" So I've been really excited about this, and I'm just so happy to have you guys here. Why don't you guys tell us how you came up with the idea for the app?
Sure.
I leave it all on Evans. Evans is really the so Evans, you can kick it off.
Not a problem, not a problem. But, it was amazing getting that DM from you because I saw your show. What's really good with you was mental health, and I saw the synergy. I'm like, oh, we definitely got to do something and get together. And the story of the You Good app is it's one of those stories where something is invented because of a need, and oftentimes when that happens, we don't even know that we really need it. So a few months ago, my friend Ali, well, I did not hear from him. I was wondering, sent him a few texts. He didn't respond. And then I finally called and got a hold of him. And I said, I said what we all often say when we talk to a friend, especially us in the culture. I say, yo, Ali, you good? Yeah, he said he was okay. He was a little off. He was going through something that time. And we talked for a while. And after we talked and, resolved certain things that he was dealing with, I said, Ali, I always had an idea about an app where people can kind of go through what we just went through, talk things out, just check in on each other, in a way that's normalized. And at first he didn't really think, it was a big idea. But then luckily at the time, Ali was doing a lot of coding and tech related thing for the government and some some science-based organizations. And he said, you know what, Evans, I think if we put this idea in the context of mental health, it will really be good. He
Right.
talked about what we were going through with the pandemic and everybody sheltering in place. And from there, the You Good app was born, right, Ali?
Absolutely, yeah. That's really how I got started. I'm one of those guys where I get pitched a lot by ideas, and although Evans did not truly pitch me on the idea, he just mentioned it. And I'm like, I don't see the need, but I didn't really factor in the mental health component. And so when I started thinking about that, a quick 15-minute conversation that we normally have ended up being a 4-hour conversation, which took place on a Friday
Wow.
from like 6:30 because you was just leaving the office and to about maybe like almost 11 o'clock. And then from there, I said, Evans, how late are you going to be up tonight? He's like, oh, I'm always up late. I said, okay. And he's always up late. And I started just, putting together some wires and some frameworks. And I sent it over to him maybe around like 2 a.m. He's like picking it apart. And I was impressed with that because, I thought this was complete in the sense. And most times you send it over to people and they're like, oh, this looks great. Right. And this makes sense. He's like, nah, man, the app is too complicated. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so we just went through a brutal iterative process, the entire team and we sort of landed where we are today.
Okay. So you guys are in like completely separate fields from mental health. Like you're in tech and he's a lawyer. So like, how do you guys even know each other? Like, how did you guys meet?
Evans, back on you.
A good question, because I'm a lawyer and I actually work for the city of Newark. I do work in economic development. And, one day, Ali came in because he wanted to do some work for the city, and he's all. I mean, in addition to tech, he's just always innovating and doing a lot of things for community projects and development type matters. And we hit it off immediately. Like he was funny. Like we had similar backgrounds. He had a daughter, and I had a daughter, and so we just kind of instantly became friends. And he at that time he was living in Newark, not too far from City Hall where I worked at the time, and a friendship flourished from there.
Okay.
Yeah. And we actually, the mayor of Newark, Ross Baraka, a phenomenal mayor and gentleman, and he's the one that introduced us. We have a good relationship, and he's like, you got to meet Evans, and emailed Evans right away, and a couple of days later he and I got together, and then from there, again, we didn't talk about any business at all. We started out talking about business maybe for like 5 minutes, and after that we just hit it off. And Evans is a guy. What's interesting with him, and I know this interview is not about Evans at all, but you must acknowledge kind of like why we're here.
Right.
And it's really the factor in those who have this, who plays a really big part in your life, where you have friends or family or loved ones who actually really check in on you, right?
Right.
And they don't want anything. And oftentimes I feel like if I'm checking in on someone, if it's a friend, it's like, what's the agenda behind it? Or, what's the purpose? What's the meaning behind it? Evans is like, he checks in on me ever since that day we first met. You good? And, you all right? What's going on? He'll come over to the house, and I'm like, man, I love this guy. And so from there, it was very easy, to create this project, and even just to be engaged. You hear the chemistry, the way we laughed,
right.
prior to us, going live.
Yeah.
It's like, we're both busy. So he respects my time. I respect his. And, we just have a chemistry where we're not, in a sense, close anymore. Like, we don't have the intimacy where we're, brainstorming and, in the same room together. I live in the DMV. He still lives in Jersey, but that chemistry is so important amongst the entire team. And that's really our output of how we execute.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, like, as Black men, do you feel like it's difficult or it's like a stigma to ask your friend about their mental health, like as Black men? Because I know, like, with women, we are always like, girl, how you doing? And, did you go to therapy this week? We talk about that stuff all the time. So for Black men, do you feel like it's awkward to ask that, or what would you say?
I think a lot of it is cultural engineering for Black men. We're raised to, really be strong. We're like products of a time when, people separated us, whether it was slavery or by, socioeconomic engineering, to just so that the absence of the Black man weakens the fiber of the Black community. So that engineering and that separation has made it so that we always feel that we have to be strong. We have to protect our community. We have to protect our family. And as such, that vulnerability is tough to kind of communicate.
Yeah.
Between, a Black men. So that's sort of just, a product of just how we've been kind of reared.
Yeah. And to piggyback on what Evans was saying is that absolutely, I totally agree. I had no sort of like understanding what mental health meant, right? Because it's been selfish of me over the years to not really invest a lot in my mental health. I invest a lot into sort of like my learning, right? And the skills that I want to acquire, and the knowledge base and the domain base and things of that nature. But, when working closely with, the federal government and organizations, that's when it became very clear to me, like what I was actually building, right? And some of the needs of people of color and minorities. And then when Evans mentioned, this idea where there should be a tool to check in, it just all started clicking.
Right.
And you can't, no matter what data you look at, the data is very obvious, right? Like, the disparities there amongst, Blacks and minorities. And so, we were objective and we wanted to do something. And, I like to call it, for me, standing on the front line and saying, like, here's how we can provide some value. This is our skill, right? We can't, we can't write laws. We can't, change the way corporate policies are put together. We can't change regulations, but, we can build something that can be used for the people. And that's what we did.
Right. Yeah. And I was in my first meeting with Evans, I was telling him about how unique the app is because like people with depression have a hard time actually verbalizing that they need help or that they want somebody to talk to them. They're always expecting like somebody to come up to them because they don't want to be a burden. I hear that all the time from my clients, like, oh, no, I don't want to tell anybody. I don't want to be a burden. Like, I don't want them to look at me differently. So with this app, I like it because I've actually been using it with my clients, and it's easier for them to press a button rather than to like actually talk to their parents about, oh yeah, I'm feeling suicidal today, or I'm feeling down today. So I really like that part about the app, and that's how I got it. I wanted it to be connected to my job because I was like, well, we do safety planning for our children with depression, and this could be included in the safety planning. So yeah, I like that aspect.
And that's and I think like we had no idea of that, right? We had no
Right,
idea
yeah.
how to communicate with like your clients, so people who are really battling or dealing with like whether it's depression or mental health issues. and I can speak for myself, and I'm sure Evans, we go through things as well, but I had no way to communicate with that. Evan's way of communicating with that is an effective way, right? Is picking up the phone and reaching out to people.
Right.
But for someone like myself, it's going to take me time for me to just reach out to you, Nia, or whoever, right? Daily or weekly. So working with people like yourself and all the other experts in the room allowed us to be able to figure out a simple and effective way, at least as a starting point for us, to check in on those people, your contacts and your loved ones. And again, that's the burden that we try to remove, the friction we try to remove. And when you think about your question prior to this, just was, kind of like people sharing their moves, like absolutely, like still in the app, right? You will see my friends and my contacts who stay on green, and they would text me and say, man, I'm not having a good day. Now, I understand that the app is new, right? Where you don't have to essentially go in there and report your status, but I see that as a starting point that they actually text me telling me like, hey, I'm not having a good day today.
Right.
Or actually today is a great day. So I'm like, okay, this tool is helpful, and they're using me as a sounding board where they can actually share, how they feel. So it's been fascinating.
Right. And I was watching one of your previous interviews, and I remember Evan saying something about like, in the pandemic, everybody had a lot going on mentally. So it's not that we don't care about the people or we're not thinking about them, but we have so much going on ourselves that we don't have that time to actually check in. So I think that's a good way too to check in, because I feel guilty myself. Like some people I haven't talked to like the whole pandemic or, in months, because I had to deal with what I'm dealing with. So I think that aspect is pretty cool too.
The guy recently who said he hasn't seen his mother since October of 2019. And he said, he blames it on the pandemic, but she lives not even 100 miles away. And to me, that's fascinating, right? But, you don't know what she's dealing with, what she's battling or dealing with health-wise, right? That's causing, but it's like not to see your mom, for almost 2 years. It's like, that's a lot. That's, you say it's taking a toll on them.
Yeah, definitely. Would you say you guys struggled with anything like during the pandemic, like mentally?
Well, the interesting thing is that, during the pandemic, like, thankfully, my immediate family, we didn't have, any direct loss, but, I lost a lot of people that I knew. And as there were people I worked with that, that was there at the beginning of the year, and at the end of the year, they were no longer there. And, so that was really tough.
Yeah.
And one thing I noticed, and I talked about it in a previous show, is that the pandemic was just, it was one thing, but for African Americans, there were layers. There was, George Floyd, and
right?
Just all this, civil unrest. So it was just, and for me, I had another layer because, I'm Nigerian, and there was a time during the pandemic where there was a big shooting of demonstrators on the Lakey Bridge, and everyone was hashtagging, for Nigeria and SARS campaign.
Right.
And I didn't even know how it hit me until one time a friend of mine just called me and said, yo, Evans, you good? And she called because of the Nigerian, issue that she saw on the media. And I pulled over and I didn't, and I just started crying. It was like the weirdest thing. I guess I didn't know how much all these things were just kind of impacting me until she kind of called and it burst that bubble. So,
Right.
during the pandemic, I felt that way, and I know a lot of people felt that way, which is one of the things actually, got us to partner. Now we've partnered with two Nigerian-based NGOs that deal with mental health, African Mental Health Matters, and anti-suicide and depression ASAD organization. And we're doing a lot of work because in addition to Ali and I, we have two other co-founders, Johnson and Ezekiel, that are Nigerian. And, so we're really excited about the opportunity for the momentum of this app to reach people of color all over the world.
Ali, did you have anything to add about how the pandemic affected you mentally?
Uh, well, yeah, you know, just dealing with, you know, the limited time that I had, was spending with my daughter, right? That to me took the biggest toll on me. Thankfully work has been great. Health has been great. I moved into a new home. So, everything's been on the up and up, but truly it was hard for me to say, that's why I kind of stutter, early on, answering the question. But, not being able to spend as much time as I normally do with my daughter throughout the pandemic's been the toughest part. We've developed a very, very great, virtual relationship. And then I find myself every 2 weeks just going up to New York, but it's tough. She starts school, brick and mortar back tomorrow. I'm super excited for her that she can go back to school and interact with people. But I just empathize with a lot of the kids. Evans has a daughter who I've met, and these kids are they're very vibrant, they're bright, they're excited, they're happy, and to shut down for a year with limited resources besides their tablet or their device, it's been hard. So me not being able to spend that intimacy with her where we're going out or we're traveling and we're at events and, it's tough, because prior to the pandemic, we were cooking every week. We were cooking, we were learning new recipes and I was learning a lot from her, so that was to me the biggest toll that the pandemic has taken on me.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. Would you say that this app has kind of helped you with your mental health? It almost sounds like you're a little more open now that you've been working on this app, and your attitude towards mental health has kind of shifted.
Yeah, I think I've taken on this responsibility, like I mentioned earlier, where my friends are reaching out to me, whether it's any app or just via text message or phone call, because they think I have this knowledge base where I'm like a therapist now, right? I know all this information about mental health. I'm like, man, these calls that we're on with these really bright medical, professionals, and I spend a majority of the time just listening because I'm taking it all in. I would say definitely I'm very open now to just sharing, my mood with even Evans. When I speak with Evans, daily, I'm like, how you feeling? And Evans would say, I'm all right, good. And so I would say the same thing. I'm always optimistic. I'm like, I'm great, but at the same time, it's we're just open to sharing. And then, when he and I are talking, I'm like, we're always evaluating how we can be better. And that's one thing that's about the team. We're always evaluating how we can be better. Again, prior to us going live, right? We're talking about how, I wasn't in a good state. So, so it's just, I think, the responsibility is great because, I get to share how I feel, and then people are opening up and sharing how they feel. And I heard a really interesting story earlier with someone I sat down and had coffee with, and she shared everything with me about her relationship, her prior relationships, her childhood. And I sat there for about 30 minutes just listening. I was taking it all in. And so just being able to hear that, whereas before, I really don't want to hear your problems. But again, that's that really sort of selfish part of me where I'm just like, I don't want to hear about this stuff. But now kind of learning about all these, sort of like these trauma or these triggers for people,
Right. Yeah.
all these different states is fascinating. It's crazy.
What about you, Evans? Or you feel like you was always the mental health guy?
I was not always the mental health guy, but I would say, and I have said before, I feel like this app is an extension of me, because anyone that knows me will tell you that if I care about you and I don't hear from you for a while, I'm checking in. And part of that is like a concept I've always had, that relationships are these emotional banks where you have to make deposits. So when the people come to this bank and they want to make a withdrawal and they've never made a deposit, that's when the relationships are strained. So one thing that the app does, it provides a simple, non-intrusive way to make deposits. Like,
right.
You open the app, I'll see Nia. Oh, I haven't spoken to Nia in like a year. Double tap like I'm liking an Instagram picture, right. And boom, Nia gets a message. Evans is checking in on you. You good. Mm-hmm. And wow. And then Nia feels like, whoa, like, Evans is thinking about me. Now, next time, Evans, is asking Nia to borrow $1,
right,
Nia doesn't feel no type of way. Like,
right.
Okay. He checked in on me the other day, so, you got to make these emotional deposits.
Mm-hmm. I forgot to ask the most important question, and that's, how does the app work? We didn't even go through that yet. So whoever wants to explain how the app works and how to download it and everything, go ahead.
Not a problem.
I was like, I forgot that whole question. Like, that's the most important part.
Now, the app is very simple. When you open it, I'm laughing because, Ali's had a rough night, and normally, because he's a tech guy, he would answer all these questions. But he's answered it enough for me to kind of like take that role. But you open up the app checks in on you. You'll say, "Hey, Nia, you good?" Now you got like 3 options. You're red, yellow, and green. Green, you're good. As we say in the hood, you're Gucci. They got the yellow. You're kind of like, you're a little off, but you're not bad or you're not good. But then the most interesting part of the app is really like the red button. So once you hit red, you got 2 options. This is really on launch. It'll give you an option for a warm line. I know in California, you guys have like what they call like the teen lines, and it's the same concept.
Yeah.
Where you have the volunteers that can talk people through things. And if things are that dire, you also have the option for the National Suicide Line. And of course, if if it's not that serious and you just feel bad, you just you hit continue and you go right into the app. And when you go into the app, you have your list of contacts. But those contacts that you see are people who have already downloaded the app, and they have you in the contact base, because we wanted to create an ecosystem of support that was private, meaning your own contacts. This is not Instagram or Facebook. We're not inviting the world into your problems. Right. We're allowing those that are in your contacts to be that support in order to deal with whatever you're going through. And for one thing that some people in the mental health space have found very useful is our group function. Like you can, I'm a Phi Beta Sigma. I can do a group, my frat brothers, like you do your book club or your lacrosse team. And when you put all those contacts in these groups, you could again double tap like liking a picture on Instagram, and they get all these individual check-ins. They don't know they're in groups, but they'll know that you checked in on them. Right. And again, you do those emotional deposits that we believe foster great relationships.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
This is a great explanation.
Well said. Could you not? Well said.
My last question is, do you guys have any plans to expand the app? Like, what are some things you guys want to do with the app in the future? If you could tell me. I don't know if it's top secret.
No, it's funny. It's a good question, because honestly, we really don't know, because we didn't try to do this as a business. This was just an idea about helping people that came from our relationship, our friendship that we put out there. And it's just getting a life of its own. So, it's not a company. It's something that people have found useful. So to be quite honest, we really don't know.
Oh,
But,
okay.
but it looks good.
But Nia, I think we were very goal driven with this project, right? We had time constraints. We wanted to launch around the inauguration, right? And not predicting who would win, but just around that timing of the inauguration.
Right.
We had our job obligations, family obligations,
Right.
and then to our advantage, we also had the extended holiday, which was the Christmas break and New Year's. So we had all these different variables, in our way, and we knew that once the New Year kicked back off, like we were not going to have as much time and resources to pour into the app.
Right.
So the month prior, all the knowledge that's being transferred to us from everyone we're working closely with, all the data that we're cleaning. Once we had that, we just went through that, that 1 week design sprint. And that's why we were able to build the product and just iterate from there. So our goal was just to launch around Martin Luther King Day, right? Share our story, and see that and try to make sure that the app can become useful to people. That was our goal. And being able to execute that with all these constraints and variables, like to us, that's always been something that we really pat ourselves in the back on, because the execution was so important. And that's truly what you're based on. And that was our biggest goal, just getting the product out there. We're spending a lot of time now trying to figure out how to improve the app, right? Because we're listening to people like yourself and even, the organizations that we've been in touch with and the universities and our customers and the support tickets, which continuously trying to improve the app, but it's all about finding the time and resources to do that. So the one thing we're making sure we're doing is that our servers up and running, right? So people can actually use the app. That's at minimum, but, making tweaks on the front end and on the back end is something that we're constantly trying to do and just finding resources to invest in, into improving the product.
Okay. Well, if y'all need some ideas on how to expand, I'm just kidding. I might be able to offer something, but no, I'm just kidding.
You've been a great resource.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
You've been a phenomenal resource, and give yourself a lot of credit, right? You mentioned on the top of the show, and we can't be discreet about this at all. You reached out to Evans replied, you guys had a conversation, and you connected us with some people where, I'm on the phone calls, and Evans and I we had recaps after these phone calls and these conversations with some of these organizations, and they're figuring out how to integrate the product and, throughout the entire organization. And just thinking about that, and that opened our eyes to nonprofits, right? We were really focused on your contact, which were individuals.
Right.
We didn't look at organizations at whole, right? If this tool can be useful to your clients, we didn't look at that. And seeing that that's the interesting segment for us has been a complete eye opener. So give yourself a lot of credit for just even looking at those opportunities and partnerships. And those all came from you. So, I hope your listeners know that, you're just not here as a host. You're also here as a partner. And someone that, I sent you an email where I said, hey, I just want to say thank you for all that you've done, for You Good. And so just want to give you that love and credit.
Right, Nia, you're doing the work. You're not talking about it. You're actually doing the work.
Yes.
You're spreading all the, positive, messages regarding mental health, and especially mental health in our community. One thing that You Good is intentional about our community. That's why the name is You Good. It's not Are You Okay? It's like, even in your show, what's good with you. That's how we're intentional, and I love that.
Yeah,
Nia, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you again, this pat yourself in the back. You're able to see really interesting opportunities, and I think that's what creates value for you. That's what creates value for yourself, also people that you're working closely with and interviewing, and it's just something phenomenal. Again, the people that we've been in touch with, Evans and I, we spend a majority of our calls listening, and we're sharing who we are and what we're doing and our purpose, and we spend a majority of we just listen, and we hear all these stories. I'm taking notes the entire time, and then we're regrouping. and we're figuring out if there's a need, or how we can implement this, or how we can do this, and how we can do that, how we can better this. And this, it's just, it's great to see people like yourself really just trying to just, change the narrative, inspire one another, and then also like just be mission driven.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I love about this app, is that it helps normalize mental health and therapy within the Black community. And I just think that is so cool that the app was created by two Black men. Like, that was just awesome to me. And when I was talking to Evans about how he came up with the idea for the app, it just reminded me about why I started this podcast, because, a lot of people were struggling mentally in the pandemic. So when I saw the name and then I saw the purpose behind it, like, I was 100% trying to support it and telling my friends about it, telling my boss about it at work. I was just like so passionate about it, because that's my goal, is to normalize therapy and, take away that negative stigma from therapy and mental health, so that everybody is, checking on their mental health just like they check in with their physical health. Right. So, yeah, I'm happy that I could help and be of assistance. Did you guys want to say your Instagram for the app, or anything where they could download the app?
I mean, you can find all those information at our website, www.ugood.app. And from that website, you can, you'll find our social handles. You'll be able to download the app both on iOS and Android. So we welcome, we want people to go to the app and start connecting.
And, and one thing that we also want to share is that we need help, right? We need resources. And when I say resources, we want smart people like yourself to join us on this mission, right? To be able to help inspire, continue the conversation, right? Work on social media, content, marketing. Like, this is not a business. This is truly like a labor of love, a passion project, public service. And, we would love to partner with, we have a lot of people reaching out to us, but one thing we failed to mention is that we would love to take on, colleagues, or, interns, or just people who want to support us, throughout this journey. And so that's something I definitely wanted to share.
Okay. Well, I'm down. If y'all need my help, I'm down. But thank you guys. Good. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. And I can't wait to put this out. I'm going to put this out later on this week. So I'll let you guys know, and I'll send it over to you. I guess that's it. Follow us on Instagram, _what's good with you. Subscribe to us on YouTube, and we are available on all streaming platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. And that's all. What's good with you?